the Big 550 KTRS.
It is 8:53. Jessica Bock, our friend from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, stltoday.com, joins us. Jessica, good morning. Thanks for joining us here on the Big 550 KTRS.
Good morning.
This story you had in the paper yesterday about this 13-year-old who was expelled from the Hazelwood School District is quite remarkable. It's a question of, okay, great, now what happens? Tell us quickly, what's the background of this story?
Well, last year, this boy, who was 13 at the time, was basically caught in the middle school bathroom with some pain pills and another student, and there was an accusation that he was trying to sell these pain pills at school. He went through the expulsion process. The school board voted to expel him, and then he was basically left without any options. His mom, I believe, was not working at the time, didn't have a job, and he sat for 6 months without getting an education before legal services picked up his case and decided to fight for some sort of alternative after he'd been expelled. He didn't have a computer. There's lots of options online through the state that students can do if they're expelled, but if you don't have a computer and you can't afford a private school, this is sort of the question that the story exposed was, what kind of right does this child have and what's good for society in the long run? If a kid's sitting there without be able to go to school.
Right, and this is the first time something like this has happened where this sort of kid was expelled and there was nowhere for him to go and no resources for him to do anything?
This is the first time that I think there was litigation involved. So, expulsions are actually pretty rare in a lot of our schools, and if it does happen, maybe it's a family who has the resources to try to find a private school, or the student sits at home for a year and does online courses or things like that. And this was just a situation where the kid didn't have any options, and legal services thought this is a time to fight this case because, he needs to be able to go to school.
So what happened to the kid?
So the school district and legal services reached a settlement in January and determined that the school district should be responsible for some sort of alternative education for this boy. And they're going through a place called ACE Learning Centers, which typically is a place where students who are not expelled go. These are students who are having trouble in school and they're behind in credits for one reason or another. Maybe there's a teenage pregnancy or they're close to dropping out. But in this case, Hazelwood agreed to say, okay, we will pay, I think it's like $4,400 a year for this child to go and receive his education through that school district. And then, after some time passes, he can apply and ask the school board, can I come back to the school district now? So I don't think it's going to be, the rest of his secondary career in this center, but at least for the time being, he's, out and doing something. And by all accounts, he's doing really well there.
Right. It brings up so many questions. 13-year-old selling pills in school, should he be tossed out forever, I guess, is one of the questions. And I guess Hazelwood said he's expelled basically forever?
Well, he can, I think it's maybe a year. He can, reapply to the school board and they can, determine, okay, has enough time passed, can he come back?
Right.
And, student records are kept private, so we don't know the background, what all kind of information was in front of the school board that went into their decision. So who knows what led up to that, but they determined at that point that he shouldn't be allowed back in school. And then their attorneys were arguing, we've done our due diligence here. Now it's the state's responsibility to do something.
Right.
I was going to ask you, once a kid is expelled, is it the school's responsibility to figure out where they should go next? Is it the parent?
Who's in charge of the kid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it brings up a lot of questions. And I think in this circumstance, they said, okay, let's, what is best for this child here? What can we do? And I think sort of the Hazelwood School District and the state were sort of pointing fingers at each other, but it sounds like they reached a resolution here that makes sense.
The other thing, too, is if he's unfit to go to school in Hazelwood, but he's fit enough to go to school with this other organization.
Right. Yeah, and when I talked to Gene Reynolds, who is a longtime educator and the founder of ACE Learning Centers, he said that people that come in and visit his learning sites are really kind of blown away because these are supposed to be, quote unquote, the problem kids. But when they're taken out of a setting that's troublesome for them, a lot of them do really well.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like it's a good choice for him.
Jessica, what has the reaction been since you posted this story online at stltoday.com and was into the newspaper?
Well, I think, a lot of people are fascinated by it because, I guess I grew up thinking, too, if you're expelled, you're done, and, you've ruined your chance at being able to attend school. But this is sort of a new way of thinking, and it's hard, too. How do schools balance trying to do what's best for the kid and maintaining order and discipline in their schools? It's something that the federal education department is working on as well. They teamed up with the Justice Department, and they've been trying to look at discipline in schools and best practices. And what they put out, too, was, very, very, last chance should you expel. Try to keep kids in the classroom. And when they can't be in the classroom, provide them some sort of alternative education.
Really interesting. And Hazelwood is actually paying $4,400 after they expel the kid. All interesting stuff. Jessica Bock, stltoday.com. We'll let you get back to work, Jessica. Thanks for checking in, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right. Thanks a lot.
stltoday.com and the Morning Show have teamed up. You can watch us, stltoday.com/McGraw, also at ktrs.com, and we'll tweet that out. 9 o'clock, KTRS St. Louis, powered by Towson Technology.